بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد باب قول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم هلاك أمتي على يدي غيلمة سفهاء وبه قال حدثنا موسى بن إسماعيل قال حدثنا عمرو بن يحيى بن سعيد ابن عمرو بن سعيد قال أخبرني جدي قال كنت جالسا مع أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه في مسجد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بالمدينة ومعنا مروان قال أبو هريرة سمعت الصادق المصدوق صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول هلكت أمتي على يدي غلمة من قريش فقال مروان لعنة الله عليهم غلمة فقال أبو هريرة لو شئت أن أقول بني فلان وبني فلان لفعلته فكنت أخرج مع جدي إلى بني مروان حين ملكوا بالشام فإذا رآهم غلمانا أحداثا قال لنا عسى هؤلاء أن يكونوا منهم قلنا أنت أعلم صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد عدد ما ذكره الذاكرون وصل على سيدنا مولانا محمد عدد ما غفل عن ذكره الغافلون اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد أفضل صلواتك بعدد معلوماتك. Tonight inshallah we'll continue from the next session of this chapter, Kitab al-Fitan, the book of trials and the book of tribulations. This chapter is about the statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that is halaku ummati ala yaday ghaylimatin sufaha, that the destruction of my ummah will be brought upon the hands of some young people who are foolish. This is a statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the way Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi has added it or inserted it into the heading, into the title of this chapter, reflects that the chain of narration of this particular statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not qualify the standard of Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi for this book, for Sahih Al-Bukhari. So the style of Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi has proven that many times he thinks the hadith is authentic and reliable, but there would be some flaw in the chain of narrators because of which he would not mention the hadith with the chain of narrators in this book. Instead, he would use that as a heading for the chapter, as the topic for the chapter. So this hadith is telling us, according to this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the destruction, the word halak is also used in Urdu, in Hindi, and Persian, Farsi, and maybe some other languages as well. It's a commonly used word and it's an Arabic word, and the meaning of this word is destruction and annihilation. So the word halak means destruction and annihilation. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, halaku ummati, the annihilation of my ummah, the destruction of my ummah will be brought upon the hands of some young people who are foolish. Ghaylima is a plural of ghulaim, and ghulaim is actually the tasghir of ghulam. And ghulam is a word that is used for young kids. Some scholars say that this word is used for children who have not even yet reached the age of puberty, like maybe a 12-year-old boy. And the plural of that is ghayb. So young boys. Sufaha is a plural of safi, and safi means fool. So the reason why Rasulullah ﷺ added this word safi is sometimes the boys are very smart as well. But many times boys do not have that intelligence that can be found in a grown man, in a mature person. Because that wisdom and that intelligence comes with age. As you age, you start to grab that wisdom and that intelligence that comes with the age. And it's not something universal, but it's something that is apparent and obvious. With majority of people, the wisdom and intelligence comes as they grow older. So the rule with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always been that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never gave prophethood. He never appointed someone to be His prophet until they reached the age of 40. There was only one exception to that, and that was Isa alayhi salam. But even Isa alayhi salam did not start preaching until he reached the age of 30. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not appoint anyone except Isa alayhi salam and Yahya alayhi salam to be His prophet and to be His messenger until they reach the age of 40. And the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set that mark, that year, to be the year in which these people who became the prophets of Allah received their mission, received their prophethood, because that's the time when a person reaches the peak of his maturity. From there, the journey of decline begins. In terms of intelligence. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed these people to be His prophet, to be His messengers when they reach the age of 40. And if you look at the American Constitution, according to the Constitution, no one can be the president of America unless they are 40 or above. Anyone who's younger than 40 cannot become president of the United States. So it's something that's commonly agreed upon and something that has been universally accepted throughout the world. So the leadership of very young people on that level, where someone has to govern the whole country, is vested with those who are mature in age, who are mature in understanding, who are mature in intelligence, and who can be relied upon. Because young people, they become emotional very quickly. And if they are in a position of power, and they are affected by their emotions, they can take an action that can definitely destroy the whole country. They can take the country to the war. They can do things to the country because they have the power. So they can do things, they can make those decisions that will turn out to be an annihilation, a destruction for the entire country. And this is what Rasulullah ﷺ pointed towards in this hadith, in this statement, that this destruction of my ummah will also be brought at the hands of the young boys, young people who are foolish. They won't be wise. They won't be intelligent either. So this has happened in our history, and this is something very ordinary if you look at the system of monarchy or the system of imperialism, in that kind of system of governance, the successor is chosen based on the lineage. The successor to the throne is chosen based on the relationship to the monarch, to the king. And that has happened in our Islamic empires as well. The most recent one was the Ottoman Empire, Ad-Dawlat al-Uthmaniyya. And I have read myself about the Ottoman Empire that sometimes the successors to the throne came onto the throne when he was just 20 years old, 19 years old. And the leader of North Korea is also a young boy. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Halaku ummati ala yaday ughaylimatin sufaha." Now let's look at the hadith. The hadith is narrated by Amr bin Yahya bin Sa'id bin Amr bin Sa'id. A long name has been mentioned here. So Amr is the son of Yahya, and Yahya is the son of Sa'id, and Sa'id is the son of Amr, and Amr again is the son of Sa'id. So a long name has been mentioned here. Basically, it is stretching all the way to Musa bin Ismail, who's the teacher of Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayh, who taught this hadith to Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayh. So Amr bin Yahya bin Sa'id bin Amr bin Sa'id said that my grandfather told me, Akhbarani Jaddi, my grandfather told me that he said, Kuntu jalisan ma'a Abi Hurairah. I was sitting with Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina. When you say the word Masjidun Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is only one masjid that comes to mind in the whole world, and that is the masjid in Medina that was founded by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that was constructed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is buried in that masjid as well. That is the only masjid that is known as Masjidun Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the father of Amr bin Yahya said that I was sitting with Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and with us was Marwan. Marwan was the ruler. Marwan was the Amir. He was the ruler of Muslims at that time. So Marwan was also in the same gathering. Qala Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu at that time, because Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, his job was to spread the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that made him one of those Sahaba who narrated the largest number of ahadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So wherever he would go, he would report ahadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He has reported over 5,000 ahadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in fact, he has narrated the most number of ahadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when he was sitting with the grandfather of Amr ibn Yahya, there was also Marwan. Rasulullah, so Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, he narrated a hadith. He said, "Sami'tu as-sadiq al-masduq." I heard the one who was truthful and one who was testified, one whose truthfulness was confirmed. He said, and that refers to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So sometimes Sahaba used to say, "Sami'tu Khalili sallallahu alaihi wasallam, awsani Khalili sallallahu alaihi wasallam," or sometimes they used to say, "Sami'tu as-sadiq al-masduq sallallahu alaihi wasallam." Sometimes they used to say, "Sami'tu Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." Sometimes they used to say, "Sami'tu Nabiyullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." So they used to refer to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in different titles, but hardly you would find a Sahabi saying Sami'tu Muhammadan sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they would not mention the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as it was considered disrespectful to mention the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam by name. Just like you don't call your father by his name. Instead you say my father or dad or baba. you don't call Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam by his name. Only the Bedouins would have the courage and guts to come and say to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Muhammad. But the Sahaba who were well educated, well mannered, they would always call Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with surnames and with these beautiful titles, not by his first name. And even after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left from this world, when they would narrate a statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they wouldn't normally say Sami'tu Muhammadan sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Qala Muhammadan sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Instead, they would say Qala Nabiyyu sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Qala Sadiq al-Masduq, Qala al-Habib, Qala al-Khalid. They used to use one of those surnames of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that is the respect, and that applies in our times as well. When we mention the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we should say Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam instead of saying Muhammad. We should say Nabiyullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These are the better forms in which we should mention the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then that extends, that manner of respect extends to elders as well, especially those who are related to you. Your uncle, you should not call them by name. Your father, you should not call him by name. Your mother, you should not call her by name. Even the ulama who are well respected, who are well accepted, you should not call them by name. Instead, you should say, O Imam, O Shaykh, Ya Shaykh, or something like that. It's a manner of addressing with respect. So Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu said that I heard Sadiq al-Masduq sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, Halakatu ummati ala yaday ghilmatin min Quraysh. That the destruction and annihilation of my ummah will be brought upon the hands of young people, young boys from Quraysh. Did you realize that there's a difference between this hadith and the hadith that was narrated in the heading, in the title? In the title, the words that were mentioned were Halaku ummati ala yaday ughaylimatin sufaha, that the destruction of my ummah will be brought upon the hands of foolish young people. But no particular indication was given that these young people will be from this tribe, or from this family, or from this country, or from this race. This hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has basically narrowed that statement and narrowed it into Quraysh. And this takes us to another hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he said, Al-a'immatu min Quraysh, that the leaders of my ummah should be from Quraysh. When the issue of leadership comes up among the Arabs, the leaders should be from Quraysh, because Quraysh is a tribe of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu was from Quraysh, Umar radiyallahu anhu was from Quraysh, Uthman radiyallahu anhu was from Quraysh, and Ali radiyallahu anhu was from Quraysh. All of these four khulafa of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were all from Quraysh, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had said that al-a'immatu min Quraysh, that the leaders of my ummah should be from Quraysh. So since Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had said that, there was a fear that if, let's say, the older people from Quraysh are not available, people will start installing the young people from Quraysh to be their leaders. And that was the wrong decision. That was going to be a wrong decision. And therefore Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned the ummah that don't do that, because that will lead to the destruction of the ummah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam narrowed that statement into Quraysh, that the young people from Quraysh, if you give them the leadership, they will destroy it as well, just like anyone else. So the young people of Quraysh will be no different from the young people of any other tribe. So if you appoint them as your leaders, if you give them the governance and the leadership, they will lead you to destruction and they will lead you to annihilation. So it was a warning from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he used to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He used to say, Allahumma la yudrikni sanatu sitteen. That, oh Allah, let me not reach the year 60. Year 60 from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Islamic year 60. Because year 60 was the year in which the young person from Quraysh became the leader of Muslims. And that was Yazid bin Muawiyah. Yazid, the son of Muawiyah bin Sufyan radiallahu anhu. And that was basically the beginning of the destruction of the ummah of that time. And when destruction is meant here, it doesn't mean a total annihilation, as I mentioned. It means the destruction and decline in one way or the other. So, when the leadership starts to go in that direction, the downfall will begin, the decline will begin, and it will only stop if the leadership has changed. So that continued to happen until Umar bin Abdul Aziz rahimahullah became the leader, became Amirul Mu'mineen. Again, he restored the principles of Khilafah. He brought the Ummah back onto the principles of Khilafah. And again, there was a revival and the Ummah flourished once again. So then Marwan, he said, who was the leader at that time, and he was sitting and listening to this hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Marwan said, La'natullahi alayhim ghilma. May Allah's curse be upon these young people who become the leaders. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he said, Law shi'tu an aqul, if I wished, I could have said, Bani Fulan wa Bani Fulan, that these people who will become the leaders, they will be children of this man or children of this man, or children of this family or the children of this family. لَفَعَلْتُ, I would have said it, but I did not. And in another hadith, it is mentioned that when Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, لَوْ شِئْتُ أَنْ أَقُولُ, if I wished, I could have said, I could have mentioned them by name, but I did not, because if I did, you would have killed me. لَقَطَعْتُ الْبُلْعُومِ, you could have slit my throat, because people don't like to hear bad things. So they would have killed Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. So this person, Amr bin Yahya, he said, فَكُنْتُ أَخْرُجُ مَعَ جَدِّي, I used to go out with my grandfather to the children of Marwan when they became the leaders. حِينَ مَلَكُوا بِالشَّامِ, they became the rulers in Sham, because Yazid's government, Yazid's leadership was in Syria, in Sham, in the greater Syria. Today Syria is a small country, but the Syria at that time, 1400 years ago, was considered the greater Syria, which included Palestine, which included this peninsula, much of this area, including Jordan, these countries. So the leadership in this area was the leadership of the children of Muawiyah bin Sufyan radiallahu anhu. So Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan radiallahu anhu, he passed away. When he passed away, the reins of leadership were transferred to his children, and his successor came to be Yazid bin Muawiyah. So this narrator of hadith, Amr bin Yahya, he said, I went there with my grandfather, and we went to these children of Marwan, because Marwan was also part of this family of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, but Marwan was long before Yazid. And Marwan was not the Amirul Mu'mineen. Marwan was the ruler or the governor of Medina province. So he said, I went with my grandfather to the children of Marwan, حين ملكوا بالشام, when they became the rulers of Sham. فإذا رآهم غلمانا أحداثا قال لنا عسى هؤلاء أن يكونوا منهم. So the grandfather when he used to see young kids in leadership, unmature, with no experience, he used to say that maybe Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu meant these people. Maybe Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam meant these people that will bring destruction to this ummah. So the grandson, he would say, "Qulna anta alam." You know more, you know better whether Rasulullah meant these kids or not. So the gist of the hadith of Rasulullah is that leadership should not be given to the very young people who would not be able to make decisions wisely. Because running a country, governing an entire country, whether it's a small country or a big country like America, is not a joke. You can, when a country like America is under the leadership of unwise people, then that not only harms the people of this country, the citizens of this country, but that can harm so many people outside of the world. So one unintelligent person, one fool, if he's given the power to govern and to lead, he can destroy not only the country that he leads and governs, but he can bring destruction to so many others. So it was a lesson from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was a warning from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And unfortunately, Muslims in that period ignored this statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this hadith is one that no one can even challenge. No one can even say and raise any objections that, oh, this hadith is maybe weak, or maybe unreliable, or maybe not strong. This hadith is one of the strongest hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as it is recorded by Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi. And Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu mentioned it. It's not that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu or other Sahaba did not convey the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did not convey the warnings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But sometimes what is destined, what is written, will happen regardless of the warning. Even if you tell someone, don't drive fast. If he has to get in an accident, he will drive fast, he will ignore your warnings, and he will get into a crash. The next is the hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Usama bin Zayd radiallahu anhu, he said one day, أشرف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على أطم من أطام المدينة. One day Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam climbed one of the hills in Medina, and he said, هل ترون ما أرى? Do you see what I'm seeing? قالوا لا. Sahaba said, no, Ya Rasulullah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, فإني لأرى الفتن تقع خلال بيوتكم كوقع القطر. In another hadith, it is كوقع المطر. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I can see with my eyes the fitnas, the tests and trials coming through these homes, entering these homes and falling onto your homes like rain falls. So when rain falls, it falls equally. So just like that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I can see the fitnas coming into the city. And the reason why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned this, because he wanted to warn the Sahaba, he wanted to have them prepare themselves to face these fitnas and to be prepared for these fitnas, so they can remain steadfast and strong on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the path of Islam. And in a way, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam pointed towards the things that were going to happen inside Medina. After Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many things happened in Medina. There were many killings that took place in Medina. People came from outside and attacked. People who did not say they're non-Muslims. They said they're Muslims, but they still attacked. And people who came to attack Uthman radiallahu anhu. Uthman radiallahu anhu's death began the starting point of the beginning of these fitnas, these trials. So when there was a group of people, they wanted Uthman radiallahu anhu to be removed. So they gave him few choices that either you can go this way or you can go that way, but we don't want you to be in power anymore. They opposed the leadership of Uthman radiallahu anhu. So Uthman radiallahu anhu, he said, I do not want any bloodshed in the holy city of Medina, and I will not resign from the responsibility that has been given to me by the people. So what ended up happening after a long siege and a cruel encounter, Uthman radiallahu anhu was martyred. And when Uthman radiallahu anhu was martyred, there began a movement among some Sahaba, and especially among the family members of Uthman radiallahu anhu, who wanted to take revenge from these people, who wanted to find the killers, the murderers of Uthman radiallahu anhu, and wanted to take revenge from them, wanted justice. And Ali radiallahu anhu became the Amir al-Mu'mineen. He became the leader after Uthman radiallahu anhu. He mentioned that it is not the right time to have the trial for the killers of Uthman radiallahu anhu. Let's wait a little bit, let the things settle, at least let the people come from Hajj, and then we'll start the trial, we'll find the killers, and we will do justice. But these people who were demanding the immediate justice, they were not ready. So after some time, a war basically took place, a battle among the Sahaba. And there were two groups, there were two parties, and that war is known as the War of Jamal. And another war subsequently after that took place, and that war was known as the War of Siffin. And then after that there was another war. So there were fights, and there were a lot of fitnas, a lot of trials. And in these fitnas, there were some who were actively involved on either side, but there were also some Sahaba who stayed out, who said, I don't know who's right or who's wrong, I don't want to be involved, I don't want to be on any side. So there were some Sahaba who remained neutral as well. But Rasulullah predicted that this is going to come, and you need to be prepared for that. Because Rasulullah had the sight of Nubuwwah, had the sight from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where he could see things that normal people cannot. So Rasulullah through his sight, he could see that these things were coming. But he wanted to warn the Muslims that be prepared for it and do as I have taught you. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Inni la ara al-fitan taqa'u khilal buyutikum kawaqa' al-matar." I see the fitnas falling within your homes, going through your homes and falling onto your homes like raindrops. And in those times, we see all the Sahaba. No Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was ever selfish. There were causes of just on both sides, but the ulama have mentioned that Ali radiallahu anhu was the leader, and he was the right person, and his decision was the right decision. He was the right leader, and he was the Amir al-Mu'mineen after Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu. The last hadith is narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. He said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, يَتَقَارَبُ الزَّمَانِ وينقص العمل ويلقى الشح وتظهر الفتن ويكثر الهرج قالوا يا رسول الله أيما هو قال القتل. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the time will come close, which means it will become short. And in another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the time will become short, meaning that year will feel like a month, and a month will feel like a week, and a week will feel like a day, and a day will feel like an hour. And this is exactly what's happening in our time. The years are passing by so quickly that we don't even realize. January comes, and then there comes December. The years are starting to feel like months, and months are starting to feel like weeks, and weeks are starting to feel like days. And that's what Rasulullah ﷺ said. وَيَنْقُصُ الْعَمَلِ, and the action will be reduced. So people will do less action, meaning good deeds. So the amount of good deeds will come down. And that's also true from long period of time. Our amal, our actions, if you compare them to the a'mal, to the good deeds of Sahaba and their successors, tabi'een and tabu'ut tabi'een, our a'mal are nothing. There were people who used to fast so many days of the week, in so many days of the month. And there were those who used to stand in prayer, who used to perform so many nawafil. Even among the ulama, Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullahi alayh used to perform 100 rak'ah of nawafil every night. 100! And other ulama as well. There's so many stories that we have about our ulama and about our sulaha, how much ibadah they used to do. And compare that to how much ibadah we do, we barely do the minimum. We barely make up for the fara'id and the sunnah, let alone the nawafil and other good deeds. And that's Rasulullah ﷺ said that amal, action, will be reduced. وَيُلْقَ الشُّحْ, and greed will be put into the hearts of people. And that greed is relevant to one's own expertise. So alim may become greedy not by not spending the wealth, but not expanding the knowledge, sharing the knowledge. So he doesn't want to share the knowledge anymore. That's greed and stinginess in his knowledge. And a carpenter or someone who's expert in some field, he's stingy from sharing his expertise. So people will become stingy and greedy. وَتَظْهَرُ الْفِتْنَ, and the fitnas, trials will appear. وَيَكْثُرُ الْحَرْجِ, and harj will become abundant. This is the word that's not an Arabic word. Al-harj. This is a word that is borrowed from another language, and according to scholars, it is borrowed from Ethiopian language or Abyssinian language, African language. So in African language, in Ethiopian language, the word harj meant something that Sahaba did not know. Most Sahaba had never been to Ethiopia, so most Sahaba did not know what that word was. So Rasulullah ﷺ used the word. So Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, ayyuma huwa, O Messenger of Allah, what is harj? What is this word? Rasulullah ﷺ explained, al-qatlu, al-qatl. Rampage, murder, killing, rampage killing, abundant killing, where people are killing blindly. Like what's happening now, the shootings that take place. So one person goes somewhere and opens up the gunfire and shoots everyone who's there. He doesn't know who that person is, Like what happened in that Tucson, Arizona, few years ago, and what happened in Oklahoma last year. These people, they went with an automatic weapon, with a gun, and started shooting. They didn't know who they were shooting. So they were shooting blindly. And these people who carried out the bombing, these attacks, they didn't know who they were killing. They were not targeting anybody. They just killed whoever came that way. And Rasulullah ﷺ said that this is dangerous. This will happen, al-harj, where the mass killings take place. And that is what's happening now. So in times of these fitnas, in times of these trials, we need to return to Allah and ask for help. Seek help from Allah, seek assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and remain steadfast. And do everything in our power to try to reduce these crimes or try to eliminate these crimes to the best of our ability. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to practice upon Sunnah Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Any questions? سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد أفضل صلواتك بعدد معلوماتك اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Another important thing that I would like to point out at this moment, when we learn about these fitnas and the predictions made by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in advance, about these bad things that are happening or that will happen, it doesn't give you a green pass. It doesn't tell you that you become part of that fitna. You start doing those things in order to prove that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was right. Some people try to justify their mistakes by saying, oh, didn't Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam predict that? Yes, he did predict that, but you don't have to be that bad person to make Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam look truthful. The whole point, the whole idea of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam predicting those things and telling those things in advance is so you avoid them. You don't be among those who are part of that fitna. So that happened a few years ago. I think 6 years ago, someone came to the masjid and there was no one in the masjid. And there's a narration in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that close to the day of judgment a time will come that the houses of people will be filled with activities and people, and the houses of Allah will be abandoned. So he said, that's what's happening, and it's right. It's happening. He said, yeah, it's happening, but we need to change that. We need to start coming to the masjid so we don't find ourselves be in that time. We don't have to make that true in our time. That that prediction of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has to come true in our time, that we abandon the masjid. So we make sure that the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are fulfilled with our actions. Because this is something bad. Abandoning the masjid, deserting the masjid is not something good. So if it is happening, if you realize that people are not coming to the masjid, you don't justify it for yourself and say, I shouldn't go to the masjid either because it's going to happen, so I'm becoming part of it. You don't fall in that flow. Instead, you try to change it. And that's what makes you an exemplary person, a special person. When you try to fight with the fitna, fight with the challenge, and you try to change it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to practice Sunnah Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana.